We have a great many things to talk about with David Sampson. He's the host of Nothing Personal. It is getting more and more successful by the day, but he's still jealous of Pablo Torre Finds Out, which is getting even more popular than his podcast. Pablo Torre was on Morning Joe this morning talking sports with Joe Scarborough, who badly wants to talk sports, and he does so very poorly. And Pablo was on selling his podcast. What is the nature of your tension with Pablo Torre? Is it simple, or Meadowlark? Is it simply related to he's gotten a grander debut, it seems like, than you have? Or is there another jealousy or something more practical?
It just seems that the PR that you are doing, the PR machine that I did not think it existed and certainly has not manifested itself in any help to you, is now somehow churning out appearances for Pablo and articles and opportunities, and he gets to basically text me and then publicize, oh, I'm the number 3 rated podcast. And then Skipper has the gall to call me, you know, we've got 3 podcasts in the top 20 right now, not yours, but we've got 3 in the top 20. Guess what, folks? You'd have more if you actually would put the resources behind those that are good to make them greater and better. So,
or just be more likable.
No, that it's not even likable.
No. There is one problem facing Nothing Personal with David Sampson. It's a David Sampson portion of the title.
Oh, well, thank you, Mike. Thank you. That actually puts everything into perfect focus. And I appreciate you violating our contract because you were not allowed to say it like that during any of my weekly appearances here. You're going to be hearing. Do you guys have in-house counsel at all?
I like to say on record that David Sampson's podcast, Nothing Personal, every single day is phenomenal. I think it just needs more eyes on it because he's right. If people see that podcast, it's going straight to the top.
Juju, would you do me a favor? Because I've just learned here recently that because of a series of mishaps at Meadowlark Media, that David Sampson is now in charge of our merch store. Not just his merch store, but also our merch store. Can you, again, do a little bit of a live read for David Sampson? It's growing now. His merch store is now expanding into our merch store. He's in charge of it. Can you do a live read for how clean he looks?
Absolutely, my boy. I always look clean first and foremost. You already know what's going on, big brother. And I bought 2. I'm talking about 2 Nothing Personal with David Sampson shirts. They're on the way to the house right now. They're going to meet me at the house as soon as I get down there. That's DavidSampsonPodcast.com. The best guy. Look at him. Look at his smile. Look how adorable he is.
Not the best guy,
you
though.
Feel me? He is. I
love you, Juju.
He's one of the best guys walking the earth. You just got to peel him open like the orange.
He's not one of the best guys walking the earth. We just had the exchange of you've got to be more likable, and his answer was no. That's how that went back and forth.
It wasn't no, it was you can't say that or I'll sue you.
Yeah. It was much closer to what Billy said. It's just also, it's a false narrative. I think if people would listen to the show, but this isn't about Nothing Personal. This to me is that how many more episodes will Pablo be able to find stuff out? What is the longevity of that concept? Where at some point it's going to run out of cool things to find out.
He's got a point. I thought Pablo was supposed to be smart and already know everything, but now apparently he doesn't know anything, and people have to explain stuff.
Well, it was a hell of a first week. Like he found out, it's a hell of a podcast. There was a lot of finding out done, but he had 6 months to prepare for that.
Yeah, to David's point, once Pablo finds out about the 8 things maybe on this planet that he doesn't know about, then he's screwed.
No, when he finds out about everything, he'll just be you.
Fair enough.
What do you make, David Sampson, about what is happening with Mel Tucker? Because this is just flabbergasting to me that these specific details that would be written, by a dark comedy writer if they were trying to make fun of some of the things that happen in America today. This guy having these allegations with a woman who is like the most credible, and now victim shaming and her suffering from her confidentiality being released to everybody so that she has to endure what's happening now. How right now, this minute, is it possible from your vantage point, given just what we know now, that Mel Tucker keeps that job. I can't believe he's kept it this long. I can't believe that he still has it, and I've got to assume it's just because attorneys are talking about the buyout.
That's exactly what it is, Dan. There is no chance that Mel Tucker coaches another game for Michigan State University. And this is not even talking about what they're still recovering from and likely can never recover from the Nassar situation. But what happened here with Mel Tucker is he's coming out swinging in a way that people who are guilty tend to come out swinging. His lawyers cannot be happy with the statement that he released yesterday. His continuing to deny, and it's the old story, no, it was consensual. And that is the go-to that lawyers tell men to say when there's some sort of assault or some sort of violence or some sort of anything. Hey, no, I promise you, she wanted it too. That is the ultimate in victim shaming and victim blaming. And it's so wholly inappropriate here. And it's so beyond belief, actually, that that's what it was. And the fact that Michigan State has not fired him outright is only money. If he were owed nothing, or a booster would stand up and say, I will pay Mel Tucker his remaining $80 million right now, he would be fired immediately, but they're trying to negotiate.
You can tell how desperate he is because in his statement he released, he brought up Jim Harbaugh. Like, there was absolutely no reason. Jim Harbaugh later came out and was like, I don't know what I'm doing in this. Like, I have nothing to say. I support Brenda Tracy. Like, he's just pulling out all the stops to try to bring up the coach at the rival school. Like, she came out and was like, this is not a moment for rivalry. I don't understand what you're trying to do here.
It's confusing to me why it would be allowed. So when there's a lawsuit or when there could be charges, a lawyer is supposed to be able to control his client or her client. That's how it's supposed to work. But sometimes you've got the egos involved where they believe, and we have an example with the former president of the United States who does things where lawyers end up quitting because it's so bad for whatever indictment or lawsuit or issue is forthcoming. And Mel Tucker seems to be doing this as well, and I don't know why, because it's not going to get him a better settlement with Michigan State. It's not going to get him another job. He's going to be Art Briles. There's no doubt about it, and there's no doubt that he should be.
Funny you should mention Art Briles because he's been in the news this week as well for being on the sideline during an Oklahoma game that his son-in-law is the coordinator for, and the athletic director and head coach at Oklahoma, Brent Venables, both were like, we didn't know he was going to be down here. We did not sanction this. So even though his son-in-law and his son and other people that were still on that team or coaches of that team are still employed in college football, he is super toxic. And like that has caused, if you haven't been following that situation in Oklahoma, it's caused quite a stir this week.
They actually apologized. It's amazing. At first, what they said is, hey, he's the grandfather. It was the offensive coordinator for Oklahoma, and it was they said, hey, he's my father-in-law, the grandfather to my kids. He was just out there celebrating. No sooner than the next day was it, I understand that was inappropriate, shouldn't have done it, my bad, it'll never happen again. And the athletic director had to make a statement. It was a whole Megillah. And I'd say that Art Briles' days on the field celebrating anything with anyone have now come to an unceremonious end, as they should have.
David, you're the face of corporate greed. And at this point in America,
he just took that one.
At this point in America, nothing personal with David Sampson every day on the Le Batard and Friends network, but you have seen a growing gulf of disparity between CEOs, the rich, and the people who are not rich. But rarely do you hear the gulf articulated quite as coldly on how disposable employees are. Jessica, what is the name of this CEO? All I know is that what he was saying into a microphone went viral, and I just now think of this person as somebody who's appalling about not caring about human beings who are employees.
It's Tim Gerner of the Gerner Group.
All right, listen to this sound.
I think the problem that we've had is that we have people decided that they didn't really want to work so much anymore through COVID, and that has had a massive issue on productivity. Tradies have definitely pulled back on productivity. They have been paid a lot to do not too much in the last few years, and we need to see that change. We need to see unemployment rise. Unemployment has to jump 40, 50% in my view. We need to see pain in the economy. We need to remind people that they work for the employer, not the other way around. I mean, there's been a systematic change where employees feel the employer is extremely lucky to have them, as opposed to the other way around. So it's a dynamic that has to change. We've got to kill that attitude, and that has to come through hurting the economy, which is what the whole global, the world is trying to do. The governments around the world are trying to increase unemployment to get that to some sort of normality. And we're seeing it. I think every employer now is seeing it. I mean, there is definitely massive layoffs going off. People might not be talking about it, but people are definitely laying people off, and we're starting to see less arrogance in the employment market, and that has to continue because that will cascade across the cost balance.
Amen.
I saw you smile when he said that in the middle, and I haven't seen you that radiant since since Bob Ross's family was ripping him off. You say amen to that. You say unemployment has to go up, and the economy and employees need to feel pain.
The latter for sure. I don't know that I'd like it not to happen with an increase in unemployment, because I'd like to believe that employees are going to figure it out soon, but they're not doing it. There are companies right now where they're being asked, oh my God, to go back to work and actually come into the office. Horrors. It can't be. No, we want to do it remotely. We will come to the office once a week, twice a week. It's a bunch of horse hockey. Before COVID, you came to work Monday to Friday, and that was your job. Maybe we'll let you go casual Friday and not wear a necktie. And what's happened is the employees feel as though they've got the power, much like they may see in the NBA or other places. And what the employers are saying is, no, we'll lay you all off. We're not going to take lazy millennials, as they call it. I don't even know what a millennial is or how old they are, but that's what some people say, or Gen Z or something. Doesn't matter what the label is. The fact remains that people better realize they better start working, or they're not going to have their job, and they're going to be back to furloughed, which is what happened during COVID, or unemployed on a more long-term basis. Good companies are craving good employees. If you work hard, you can find a job and be paid well. But if you're lazy, you should not be remunerated for that.
David, you're at home right now.
I'm sorry?
You're doing your show from home every day.
Do you know why I'm at home right now, Billy? Because Metalark can't figure out a way to get a studio open that can actually be live.
Pablo has it.
He's not live. Totally produced by the 20 people who you hired to be on his show. 20.
Speaking of horse hockey, you can get you a horse hockey t-shirt right now from DavidSampsonPodcast.com. Meet me there.
One of the...
Only there was a track record of David doing the show live from home also when he was on CBS.
I had to move to Miami.
David, everything you said stinks so much.
Yeah, my criticism here would be rather one note, so I'd just like to move on.
I don't want to move on. The place I'd like to stay is him saying employees choosing when and when they don't come to work, and me checking my texts and seeing that Stugotz has said he's turned around and gone home because traffic is too bad.
How do you not see that as an issue? You can say that your criticism is one note, Mike, but I want to know where it is written that people, and I'm not talking about a TV show that records 4 days a week or 5 days a week or 3 days a week. I'm talking about people who work at J.P. Morgan, who are used to going into the office 5 days a week, and then they're told it's time to work 5 days a week again in the office, and they're doing a mutiny, and the CEO says, mutiny all you want. I got 1 million people who want this job and who want to earn several $100,000, millions of dollars.
David,
it's not one note.
Tim Gerner just argued for what the global economy is doing right now with their governments, which is force unemployment to go to 40 to 50%.
And I don't want that.
And damn it, you don't? Because you said amen after
I said amen, but then I said
you said amen after Tim Gerner decided that 50% of the workforce should be out of work.
Play the
you
tape.
said
We're
amen.
live. Play the tape.
You said
what
amen.
I said is I don't want unemployment to go up. I want employees to get the hint before they're laid off.
You said amen to what Tim Gerner said.
You did.
Get out of here.
You did.
You did throw an amen on there, big bro.
You did.
Which is why I am moving on.
Get an amen.
I can tell. Despite all evidence to the contrary, you've moved on.
Let's game the system and put people's livelihoods in danger because we got to change people do their jobs, man. People, I mean,
How does Stugotz do his job when he won't go through
that
traffic?
is a great point. We move on to Jim Trotter, who is people actually might have been familiar with Jim Trotter over the last few Super Bowls. Whenever Commissioner Goodell was made readily available to the media, Jim Trotter would ask pressing questions about social issues. And Jim Trotter, no longer working for NFL media, has sued the NFL and its media arm. And an interesting part of that lawsuit came out where it quotes and accuses Buffalo Bills owner Terry Pegula of stating, if black players don't like it here, they should go back to Africa and see how bad it is. And considering what my expectations are for Jerry Jones, I actually think not too bad by saying black players should just buy a league of their own and find out, and then they can hire who they want. On the Jerry Jones scale, I'd give that about a C+. Pegula, this is pretty bad. They have since come out and denied this, but what is your take on the whole Jim Trotter lawsuit?
So I'll do a bit shorter here. If you want a longer dissertation, listen to today's Nothing Personal wherever you find your podcasts or on YouTube, where I go into detail about this and why this is a bigger issue than the Brian Flores lawsuit. It should be noted it's the same attorney who represents Trotter who represented and is representing Brian Flores. The reason why the NFL had to release a statement and had to have Jones and Pegula release a statement is they can't have it anywhere on record that there is any owner who thinks something that specific, as much as the octogenarians likely do. And the reason is that they want to make sure that they have plausible deniability that there is racism within the ownership ranks. If you can't assign it to an individual, then you say it doesn't actually exist. Once an individual is assigned to a statement, then it does exist, and the question is, how deep does it get? But the real question that we have to think about is, does the NFL have the right to not pay somebody to criticize them? And my answer, having worked for a team, is yes. We did not let people work for MLB Network or write on MLB.com who are going to be critical of owners. If they did that, they'd lose their job. Ken Rosenthal, no longer on MLB Network, criticized Rob Manfred. The claim is budget constraints, budget cuts, non-renewal. It's horse hockey, because the reason why Trotter was fired and not renewed is that he wasn't criticizing Jerry Jones specifically. He was impugning the league and Roger Goodell and the fact that there's no diversity and all they do is talk and not act. And the NFL said, we don't want this guy working for us, and that's their right, but they're going to have to settle with him now.
Why are you looking like that, Mike? Why are your eyes?
Well, because according to
saucer-eyed?
this lawsuit, the league response was from one of the owners, who is one of 32 that control the league. If the black players don't like it here, they should go back to Africa. That's not exactly what David categorized it as. So I understand his point, but there's some pretty damning indictments from one of the 32 owners. Well, two of the 32 owners here that comprise the league.
David, you think this lawsuit is possibly, it's not with someone as famous because it doesn't have the details that the Brian Flores lawsuit had. You think this lawsuit is more dangerous?
I think it will cause a bigger settlement. I think that Trotter will get more money than Flores, actually, because of, remember, he's suing for wrongful termination. That comment by Pegula, it's a he said. Whether or not it was said, we don't know. But the fact is, where the money is in the wrongful termination. And if you can prove, which is why when we terminated people, we would always say we're eliminating the position. That is a way that your human resources counsel, your outside lawyer, tells you to do it, because then you can't get sued. And we make our employees sign a separation agreement whenever we let them go in order to get severance. And the separation agreement always says we won't sue you. That's pretty standard with employer-employee. What Trotter's after is to not get his job back. It's money. He wants to get paid. And he has a better chance by putting these statements in that the NFL is going to say, oi, we don't want to be anywhere near this. We're going to pay you.
Let's play some sound here for David Sampson. We're going to have to bleep some of it out. It's the Alabama-Texas game. I saw some numbers here. This Alabama-Texas game did giant numbers, but not as giant as the Colorado numbers. The idea that Deion Sanders' Colorado numbers were bigger than Alabama-Texas floored me. But on the sidelines, Alabama fans can't imagine that they would be very kind when they start losing. And so what you hear in this sound is what some of the Texas players endured.
You guys are all go back to the projects. Go back to the projects. Go back to the projects. Let's go.
I am very pro free speech, but I would like it for those people to be arrested and put in jail. I would like there to be maybe some deterrent factor where people who exhibited that level of racism are just thrown away with the key thrown away as well. And it's so disgusting, and it's such a poor reflection. And everyone says, oh, it's Alabama. Well, I know a lot of people from Alabama who aren't racist, and it is just horrific.
Alabama was questioned about this. They released a statement saying they do not approve. They don't like this behavior at their games. It's not within their morals, and that was pretty much it. Texas hasn't responded to questions about it, and while I applaud Alabama and their administration for coming out and saying that this is not right, they haven't done enough yet. Look, we've talked over the last few weeks about the Luis Rubiales situation and how far behind the times Europe is. But if this were the Premier League, which deals with slurs being thrown at and hurled at players far too often, there would be a statement saying, we know who these people are. They are banned from the games. That was missing from Alabama. It is not hard to find out who was sitting in those seats. It is not hard to find out who said that. And that is missing from this Alabama statement. And that is how you actually bring about change and hold fans accountable for this abhorrent behavior. Do you agree, David?
100%. That's with facial recognition, with all the ways we know who's in every seat in the stadium. Those people forget being ejected and forget not being allowed to go to a game. That's the fun thing that they always say. No longer allowed to attend games in Alabama. No, I want you to lose your freedom, because maybe we'll teach people to be tolerant for once and finally. It's so angry, and I would speak to players often in the clubhouse when they would hear slurs in the outfield, and it was just so embarrassing because it makes everybody look bad, and then you have to tell the players, congratulations to the Texas players for not going all Malice in the Palace, because what stops them from going around and beating the crap out of these guys?
Well, they were dancing amid the racism because they were winning, and they thought it was funny. Like, they thought it was funny to be hated, and the reason that they're being hated is because Alabama fans are losing.
Yeah, that's not funny. There was nothing funny about it. If you dance to win, and I love that, and I love winning on the road, there's great satisfaction in having fans miserable and crying. I love that. But you cannot allow for that type of behavior from fans. And not only should Alabama have said something, Mike, but I'd like to see the conference do something. Why can't they stand up and say, we are not going to accept this?
Yeah, to them dancing in amid the slurs, it's just like me every football Saturday or whatever. That sounds like my DMs. Everything they were saying sound like my DMs, but I'll just post Stugotz doing something hilarious and make them madder. So that's what the dancers is actually doing. You feel me?
Are you guys amazed by what I said about the numbers, which is Alabama, Texas was ESPN's most watched game since 2015. 8.8 million people, peaked at 10.7 million. That part, not that surprising. Colorado doing better. Holy shit, man. Holy shit. What do you mean Colorado's doing better as television than Alabama, Texas?
Alabama did slightly better. They were both in the 8 millions, but incredibly close. I think it's awesome. I've started to change my tune on it because it's seeing so many people watch and enjoy the sport I love. I'm all in.
Thank you for the correction. Regardless, the idea that Colorado is in a sphere with Alabama, Texas after 2 games, flabbergasting to me.
Isn't it just star-driven? Isn't everything star-driven? In our society where the Kardashians are the most famous people?
No. It's not just, this isn't just fame. This is also fame and counterculture anarchy.
Yes.
It's not just fame.
And to your point, yes, David, everything is star-driven, which is why we have major hurdles facing nothing personal with David Sampson.
See you later. Is that? I mean,
that's not it. We're
No,
not
no,
done.
we're not done
We're
dragging
not done
you.
yet. We're not.
No,
We've
I
got a
am
couple
done
things
because
over-
2 segments is what I agreed to,
All right,
and
now
nothing
you're
more.
done. All right,
All
you're
right,
leaving.
so
He's leaving. He's bothered. Okay,
Stuck in
there-
traffic.
But today's
All
a
right.
150-minute segment.
All right.
So.
We wanted to keep you a little
No,
bit longer, but it's all
he's
right.
mad. That's okay.
Okay.
All right, nothing personal with David
Helping
Sampson.
that one big likability issue I see today.
We had
Yeah, you've really helped, Mike.
thank you, David.
I mean,
DavidSampsonPodcast.com.
Thank you,
Juju, I love you, man.
All right,
Love you
everybody,
more.
everybody, settle down. All right, I need David Sampson to run our merch store. I need you guys to stop hurting his feelings, even though he's the face of corporate
Enjoy the
greed.
drive home, David.
putting it on Metal Arc. I saw that background on CBS. Jesus. Scoundrel.
Feel bad. He wasn't there when I said it.
There were a number of things that I wanted
feel
to
bad,
talk to
Billy.
him about that we never ended up getting to. Him saying amen, though, like there cannot be many people on earth who would publicly say amen, maybe privately.
Yes, the global government should conspire to make unemployment 50% so people can respect the corporate hierarchy. I mean,
Workers are lazy.
all workers are lazy.
Amen.
They're lucky to have us.
Amin will be here shortly, thankfully.
I mean,
Even though Stugotz, he was in traffic. He was sending texts all morning that he is stuck in traffic on the turnpike, and I'm not sure he's going to get in because he's now talking about turning around and going home. Because
he said that it was going to be really delayed by the traffic. I don't really see the point in having him show up for the last 30 minutes of the show.
But it's what Billy is just generally dealing with God Bless Football. How is it going so far?
Just
Stugotz?
FYI, he was also going to try to leave early today because there's a 2:00 interview scheduled.
How is it all going so far with Stugotz and God Bless Football?
I mean, like this. Yeah. I mean, we're it's going, I guess. Look, an episode airs now twice a week, so check it out. Lucy was on
Right.
Monday. We have an episode on Friday. Like, the episodes are coming out. It's not the easiest thing in the world, and now we're having a discussion. Well, I'm having a discussion on, like, we kind of have run out of inventory for this week. You can't just keep booking people to talk about Aaron Rodgers getting hurt because we have a limited number of of segments and times. Like, good, Greeny's coming on now, but you need to then tell Ray Romano that, you don't want him anymore. Not that Ray was going to come on anyways, but that's a whole nother thing.
But God Bless Football, you guys had 2 Chainz on this week. You
That's
feel me?
true, yeah.
Billy Gill, Mikey A, and 2 Chainz. So, look, go download that episode right now, guys.
Download Moco also because Juju was going to join us, but there was a conflict with Moco, so he couldn't join us for 2 Chainz, which is disappointing.
Duty calls.
And
Amin,
go to davidsampsonpod.com if you want to get merchandise.
and he will fix our merch store in short order, I would hope. One of the things that I wish to talk about, because Mike Ryan almost got into a fight at the Texas A&M game, which I thought was hard to do if you're in a box. If you're in a luxury box, that it would seem to increase the
Did
degree
Master
of...
piss you off? Like, what happened in there?
What happened in the box that had you fighting with people?
So for Canes games at Hard Rock Stadium, they have these living room boxes. It's a big comfy camera, big comfy couches that aren't shown on the game camera because it would be bad optics because it's just basically a row devoted to like 8 folks. So it is, you got TVs, it's a great setup. And yeah, it would be weird to have a feisty interaction there. But I got to my box and I was sitting down during the first 2 series because it's very comfy. I have a great sightline. I was there with 2 friends, Cowboy Carl and Master, and they were standing up because, it's a very exciting game. Person behind me instructs security at our stadium to tell my friends to sit down. And I see security go into my friends, and I cut him off at the pass. This is all unbeknownst to my friends. I'm like, what do you want their attention for? He's like, I want to tell them to sit down. And I look behind me, and I see it's 2 Texas A&M fans that want him to sit down. They're there with 1 Hurricanes Golden Cane, but I'm like, no, they can stand up if they want. It's a sporting event, just like the people behind them can stand up, and they're Texas A&M fans. Why are we acquiescing to Texas A&M fans? So security goes back. He sends another wave, another security person to try to intimidate me, and then I'm like, hold up, who's asking this? Is it this guy? And so I started having a back and forth with the guy. He's like, I pay a lot of money for these seats. And I'm like, I pay more money than you for these seats. I help the program more, and I'm not sitting down for Texas A&M fans. And if you're going to pull rank and try to make this a money thing, brother, I didn't see your ass here last week. So shut the fuck up. I had a couple drinks in me, but he was out of line. He ended up apologizing. But yeah, don't send, and this is to Hard Rock Stadium. If a Texas A&M fan asks you to tell Miami fans to sit down, your response should be a proper no. No, you can stand up. This is a home field advantage we're trying to build. Even though we had a wedding DJ from hell who played Party in the USA after a kickoff return touchdown that changed the game.
A charming adult interaction. You lecturing David Sampson about likability doesn't make me just generally feel good about our entire likability.
Yeah, but David Sampson needs to know he's not likable, like I've kind of embraced. I'm not doing anything to help my cause, nor am I pretending to.
Put it on the poll, please, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Can you go into the opposing stadium and send 2 waves of security at the rich guy?
Dude, like, the fact that he tried to pull money on me, I got his ass so good with. I didn't see you here last week. He kind of just shrank. And I guarantee you I'm not going to see that guy at Bethune-Cookman on Thursday. But then he kind of got the point after a couple of people in very fancy track jackets from the administration started apologizing on his behalf that maybe he should have kissed the ring, and he did. He apologized for his behavior. Look, we're going to be sharing this space all season long. No beef. You were right. I was wrong. I'm like, yeah, you were wrong. And we won't be sharing this space all season because, again, you weren't here last week. Could have used you.
Jessica, can you explain to me why you're rolling your eyes, why you're shaking your head? They're 2-0 now, and Mike is hell-bent. He is hell-bent. You have to understand something, okay? There's a substantive ego here, and Mike believes that anything that he wishes to accomplish, he can accomplish. And Mike is hell-bent like I have never seen him on anything. He made a musical. He has helped make this show monstrously successful. I've never seen him care about anything the way that he cares about getting the University of Miami back to glory. You just rolled your eyes while sitting next to him. What were they telling me?
Honestly, it's a fear reaction. I'm afraid. I'm afraid they might actually win some games this year. Wow. I'm afraid. They've got a couple tough games coming up, but Lucy and I looked at their schedule. We counted 6 wins. Easy. If they play at least
6 more?
Half is decent. No, 6 like you get in a bowl game.
That's
let's not
6 for the
crazy.
season?
That's not impressive.
At least 6.
That's not
Really,
great. That's a one-game improvement on
They
last
didn't make
year.
a bowl game last year. 6 is a good benchmark, I think.
Really?
For you
Even
guys.
though we won the Texas A&M
You'll
game?
probably get 8. You might get 9.
I was hoping for.
But you'll get 6 at least, and that scares me.
I was hoping for 8. I think with the result, 8 is likely. They got to get lucky with the injury. They got to get lucky with the injury stuff because we haven't stacked the classes to build up the depth. If we remain relatively healthy, I think 9 wins is a possibility now that they won the A&M game.
It is hard to do the qualifiers and the evaluations, the measurements on some of this stuff, because I made fun of Jessica's analysis last week when she's like, it's week 2. You don't know anything. It's just 2 weeks. What I saw was a better Miami team, but I also am willing to think I am wrong about that because I don't believe anyone in the country respects Texas A&M anymore because of what happened last season. I don't believe
Except for maybe Bama, oddly enough.
Well, but it's the SEC, and so it's an SEC team, but I believe they are such a lower class of SEC team right now that nobody thinks that Miami made some kind of giant jump that isn't already hoping for that jump because they believe in Miami.
I don't think it's because of what happened on the field last year. I think it's because that yell practice went viral. Yeah. I think that's what happened. And we're all like, oh, that's their whole thing?
Still very weird. Still very weird. I actually happen to think that
weird.
It's very weird.
And I mean weird.
I actually think Texas A&M is going to prove out to be pretty good. They're very talented. They have great receivers. And
Lucy, what is that?
I came away really impressed with Connor Wegman. He was under pressure every play, and if that field wasn't so slippery, And if those Miami players weren't clapping as much, then maybe they would have. And if they weren't spotted 14 points from special teams, maybe, they could have put up a.
No.
No, they're not good.
Mike,
they're not good.
Mike is doing the thing that you have to do if you're a college football fan, which is once you beat a team, you have to talk them up because it helps you in the rankings. So if you are here saying Texas A&M's trash, that takes a good win off your resume. And we all know the resume matters, Dan. You have to be able to say at the end of the year, we beat a really good ranked Texas A&M team. You can't be like, we beat a Texas A&M team that followed in last year's footsteps and really underperformed despite having a lot of talent. So, yeah, I've been there. NC State, Notre Dame beat NC State last week. NC State was a great team. Do I believe that? No.
Yeah.
Does it matter? No.
You're totally right. It's way too early to make a prediction on what they'll be, but from a talent standpoint, they're as talented as anybody.
They are talented every single year. That's always the truth with Texas A&M. It doesn't make them good. They haven't been good in a while, but they've always been talented.
Here's what I know. Miami had a block punt after their very first series, gave Texas A&M a short field, and then when they finally got a stop, they muffed the punt just like they did last year with Tyreek Stevenson, and it gave them another short field for a touchdown. When Miami did that before, that's quitting time. They're over. And to battle back and put up a damn near 50 burger with fewer possessions like that is really impressive from Miami, and the resiliency is what I took away from that, really.
Miami is definitely better this year than they are last year, but beating Texas A&M isn't the standard for being a good team. Pretty much everyone does that.
They have a really easy schedule. Like it's
super easy.
That's why I'm scared, Billy.
But just 6 is a disappointment if you only win 6 games with this schedule.
6 kind of hurt my feelings.
All they have left is North Carolina and Florida State.
We didn't work this hard this offseason and change out 40% of the roster to be better by one game.
Yeah, Clemson.
I didn't say you were going to go 6-6. I just said you're going to make a bowl game this year. That's why I said 6. Okay. It's unfortunate.
What kind of bowl are we thinking? Where's Mike going to go to with Cowboy?
We're thinking Holiday Bowl right now as a projection.
San Diego?
Against Oregon State.
I'm not doing that week 2. Not doing it.
No, come on.
With you.
I'm not
You
doing
don't want
it.
to talk Holiday Bowl?
This is what I
San
am
Diego's
doing,
great,
though.
in
What I am
January,
going to
December.
do is I am going to question the group on something Mike Ryan just said, because we love to say this about our teams, the word resilient. God, you hear that so much in sports. That word, to me, is fundamentally meaningless about teams in sports. Like, I know we like to accuse teams of quitting. We like to do that all the time. But the idea of resiliency as a trait for a team, I feel like most people playing sports are trying so hard that the resiliency is something you're going to come upon by accident because you keep trying to win the game because you're competitive. Resiliency is a pretty hard thing to teach somebody.
I would agree with you, except for Nebraska football, I think, is the answer why it matters if you don't have resiliency, because that team doesn't. They let themselves just, when they lose, they lose. I think if that team were a little more resilient, Nebraska would have won
you say this, but all they do is lose one-score games. Like against Colorado, they had a quarterback who kept turning the ball over, and that can look like a lack of resiliency.
I was going to totally take out Dan's take until he said at the very end, it's not something that you can teach, and I kind of agree with you there. There's a certain mentality that goes with resiliency. Yeah. I was there. I know these players. I saw them check out. Yeah. That team last year had a lot of quit. They did not have the right mental makeup. They did not have resiliency. You mean to tell me if last year's team gets in the kind of hole that this year's team does, they don't check out? Or are you just saying, it's a talent winning out?
No,
it's not.
My point is that it's a lot easier to be resilient when you're better. When you're better as a player than the ones that aren't good, wow, my resiliency gets crushed because I'm not as good as these other guys.
It's okay. You just don't know ball. Because resiliency also makes you better.
That's right.
The thing I would say to you is that most people playing football, a lot more resilient than anybody talking about it.
Right. Okay. Tell that to Mark Pope,
You know
who's
who
in
else
UMass
is
now.
resilient, Dan? Workers in America. More resilient than David Sampson, who just came on here and trashed all of them.
I will tell you the single biggest difference between Miami this year and last year. Yes, the offensive line is meatier, and they had a recruiting cycle there that helped. And Mirabal is a coach on that level that has proven that he could do it as good as anybody. The mentality of the players that were recruited and brought in via portal and the ones that were shipped out is 1,000% different.
I would say it's the coordinators. Is probably the biggest difference.
Well, the resiliency too.
Yeah, and the coordinators.
The thing that I have found throughout my coverage of sports is we will always find the mythical things we can't measure to attach to our teams to make them more noble.
It ain't mythical, Dan. When they talk about recruits that they're going after, mentality for this staff was paramount. Big bodies, talented, for sure. There were plenty of big bodies and talented people that were not on their board that they didn't prioritize. There were ministers of culture like Reuben Bain and Mark Fletcher that they highlighted in terms of being the team that we want to be. It's not just the physicality. It's the mentality. It's that dog in them. And those players have that. And it is huge.
I think that's also something, though, that comes from having a coach that motivates you. And a coach can give up on a team halfway through the season and not be able to motivate them if he's like, well, these players are just bad. They're not my players.
Didn't you tell us Mario didn't want to go to a bowl game last year?
No, because it gave him a heads up on why would he go to a bowl game as a 6-win team when he can spend that time doing what he did and have a
Rootin'.
Yeah, he can spend time on the trail. And I think one of the things that is different this year than other years where we might have gotten excited about, Manny Diaz, the Rhett Lashley, that offense shows promise, and this defense is good, is you have a guy in Mario Cristobal that's done it. He's a proven commodity. You may poke holes in it, and Lord knows he's not reputed to be this X's and O's guy.
Oh, but I'm still worried about that portion of it, by the way, because I've seen that guy his entire career lose games with the team that is better and has more dog and is more resilient. And I saw plenty against Texas A&M that I was like, oh, that will cost them the game against FSU. All of that.
What I can tell you that is different about this year's Mario Cristobal to Mario Cristobal's of yesteryear is he's totally hand over the keys to his coordinators.
What's a minister of culture before we get too far off of
like
that?
Udonis Haslem?
Where are they ordained?
Like Udonis Haslem, which is you ask like why is Udonis Haslem on the Heat's roster for so many years? It's because he teaches someone how to do things, and it's that much better and more important when it's a blue chip recruit. But I understand the concerns about Mario Cristobal from a schematic standpoint, but I can tell you, like he doesn't even. I mean, he'd prefer it if his coordinators recruit, but he knows his main job is building out a staff, getting it right, and he'll readily admit he didn't get it right last year, admit your mistakes when you're wrong, and talent acquisition. And so far, so good.
I like the visual of Mario Cristobal's of yesteryear just being all of the dead bodies at the end of the Prestige, and they're all just different Mario Cristobals, and he's been cloning himself every year, just trying to get the right formula of being able to maintain talented quarterback play, recruit, and call plays in a game.
But the Mario Cristobals of yesteryear, I think people kind of bypass his pedigree because it's FIU back there, and last year was an embarrassment. Again, he'd tell you that himself. He won a Rose Bowl, and he was a part of Nick Saban's staff. He was a part of the people that were able to totally raid the state of Florida, bring guys like Julio Jones in. As a player, he certainly knows what it takes. Like, he is someone that is well familiar with what it takes to be an elite program.
I will tell you that in college, and this is one of the reasons I laugh and I say, do you understand how much more resilient the people who do this, choose this as a living, are than the people talking about this for a living? I was terrified in college of Mario Cristobal and his brother. His brother Luis was vastly more terrifying than Mario. Mario was one kind of psychopath who had to eat 100 pounds in meatballs to be 100 pounds heavier than he is now. His brother, and I think he'll tell you this as well, even scarier than Mario. However, when it's the fourth quarter and I don't need resiliency, I need my team to not be sloppy and the play calling to be solid because you're not going to get penalties and you're not going to – didn't they call a timeout one time with 13 players on the field out of halftime or something? Didn't they have a couple of things where you're like, how does that even happen? And good luck when FSU has exactly the same number of athletes that you do.
Probably more, yeah.
And the winning is in the margins on that stuff.
But, I mean, Dan, this is not – I would love to beat FSU this year. Their program is further along. They're a really good team, and it's about catching the likes of FSU inside of a couple of years. I would love nothing more than beating FSU, but that is not really the measuring stick.
Well, but
considering last
I'm
year.
going to just make it FSU just because it wasn't that long ago, maybe 16 games, maybe less. We were making fun of their coach as having no idea what it is that he was doing, and they fixed it pretty quick. But, Lucy, you keep shaking your head, but you're also being just fundamentally respectful of the environment that you are new to. So when Mike Ryan comes in with Minister of Culture and Ministers of Culture after 2 games, are you fundamentally aware of how much worse that's going to get if they keep winning? If after 2 games he's already hitting you with a whole church of culture. Miami Heat stuff is coming, but he doesn't care about the Miami Heat the way he cares about this. I've never seen him care about anything the way he cares about this.
I've been pretty nice and quiet about it because you guys have let me come here and talk about Iowa a lot, and I'm afraid that if I stop being nice about it, you're going to stop letting me talk about Iowa.
And we've got a great Iowa video that I want to get to.
The quarterback?
momentarily.
Is it the
Yeah,
quarterback?
yeah,
Let's
like-
just do it now. Let's give Lucy what the equivalent of throwing flowers on stage for a performer, because she's been kind enough to tolerate Mike Ryan's Ministers of Culture.
See, it's already
you
working.
know, our level of communication up front and with me, the backs, and, you know, really everyone just being on the same page, because we know these guys are going to come a lot. I mean, there's but I mean, we have to be on key with our hots. We got to be on key with our protection. So damn it, I was not expecting that, but yeah, we'll be.
That's my quarterback. That is my quarterback.
What a college ape. It's so wonderful. His hair is also wonderful.
Straight out of O-Town.
First offensive pass touchdown on an opening drive since 1991 by Iowa football, thanks to that guy who can't say the verb come without giggling to himself during a press conference. Oh, do you know?
It wasn't after 2 games. I was talking about guys like Reuben Bain and Mark Fletcher during the recruiting cycle. Wow. In terms of being that dog.
Yeah.
Billy, how worried are you about all of this? How worried are you about
Life?
University of? I know you're worried about life in general, but the University of Miami being good is going to make it hard to work around Mike Ryan's culture stuff.
Yes, probably. I mean, they're going to have a good record, right? But like, they're not going to win the ACC.
Well, but I can't say that after the first 2 games. I was very encouraged, obviously, for obvious reasons, by what happened with Texas A&M. But I think Texas A&M is living off of the fumes of, we paid a coach a bunch of money, we always get the recruits, but we are not Johnny Manziel's school anymore. That is not what we can do to you. You know why? Because our quarterbacks are never any good.
Well, their quarterback is really good now, and I actually think one of the main issues facing Texas A&M is mentality, because it certainly is not talent.
Well, the grass, too, was an issue.
Well, the grass and the simulating the snap count, clearly. But if Dan was arguing talent makes the resiliency, then that should be one of the most resilient punches in the nation.
What I am arguing, I'm not arguing that talent makes resiliency. I'm arguing that talent looks like resiliency. Talent often looks like resiliency because if you're that much better than everybody else, sometimes you can come back from 21-0, and it's not because you don't have any quit in you. It's because you're better than the other guys, and you shouldn't have been down 21-0 in the first place.
I used to be just like you. I used to think intangibles weren't as important, and the closer that I got to things last year, the more I realized that we had a lot of problems, primarily the coaches that we hired last year, and Alabama's facing one of those issues right now. But mentality was certainly a contributing factor to what it was, and I've given myself over to this process. It's not the kind of way I would have gone about it, but considering where UM's administration was, where the leadership was noticeably absent for 20 years, I like that we've given ourselves over to a process. And I know it's going to wash over me that people like, oh, ministers of culture, Homer Mike is back at it again. I think I've been very rational with what I think about the University of Miami. My tone's been good. I'm giving myself over to a process. And yeah, there may be a day where I get cocky. Lord knows I'm working very hard on my own to get to that day inside of 2 years.
There's a day when you might be cocky.
Not yet.
Not yet.
We might get there.
When it comes to this University of Miami, I think I'm being good and rational.
I told Mike off air yesterday, you don't have to be smug about everything. And his response was, you sound like my wife.